To order. We can go ahead and call the NTMC August 25th Board of Directors meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the public comment. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Directors on any agenda item or other matters relating to the NTMC. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to address any item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. Any person who wishes to address the Board of Directors regarding any item may do so by utilizing the raise hand function of the Zoom meeting at this time. Citizens that are not able to connect to the Zoom meeting must email his or her public comment to kmorris-perkins@ntmc.com no later than 12 p.m. on Tuesday, August 24th, 2021, to ensure the comment will be read. The Board of Directors are not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Board of Directors may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the NTMC officers for further study or action, briefly state existing NTMC policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. Do we have anyone? I didn't receive any written comments. Do we have anyone wishing to speak at this time?
I do not see any hands raised, and I did not receive any emails. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, next item is the informational reports. We have the monthly financial statements, fiscal year 2021 year to date of July 2021, and the DCTA bus ridership report of July 2021. These reports are basically for informational purposes. I hope everyone did receive those. Does anyone have any questions or comments about those two reports?
Chair, I just want to make sure that you're aware that the consent agenda needs to be considered this morning as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I skipped over that. I apologize that. Hearing nothing on the information reports. Once again, does anybody have anything on the information reports they'd like to ask since we're there? Okay, hearing nothing, we will back up. I apologize. I skipped the consent agenda. Thank you for reminding me. Consider approval of minutes of July 28, 2021 NTMC regular board meeting. Did everyone receive a copy? If did, does anybody have any comments or questions or additions or deletions?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, I believe by Member Combs, a second by Member Suarez. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Okay, now we'll move on to the regular agenda. Is item 3A. Discuss and consider North Texas Mobility Corporation NTMC officer positions. I believe Mr. Henningson's on board with us, and he is our interim president, and I think he's going to go over some solutions. And Mr. Henderson, I do want to appreciate you pulling this together so quickly. And as we'd asked you at the last meeting, and look and see how your organization could continue to help NTMC provide the service that we want to provide to our public. So if you would, I'll turn it over to you and let you go over those options. I hope everyone did receive those options. Is there anyone that did not receive the information from Councilman Gorfita with what Mr. Henderson is going to be going over? Okay, so everyone did receive it. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Henderson.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to kind of present a couple of different, 4 different options for your consideration. Just looking at the way the organization is set up and what makes the most sense. We looked at option 1 after many days of discussion with NTMC staff and kind of looking at the overall organization. We thought modifying the current HTG contract and then to include the safety coordinator. We think that we can take the safety coordinator position and develop that with also the duties of secretary. Kind of looking at everything from a high level view, we think it's going to take about 32 hours per board meeting, regardless of how we do this, but about 20 hours for the secretary each board meeting, and then about 12 hours for the treasurer. Looking at it from a budget perspective, we thought that this one made a lot of sense due to the fact that we could pull somebody in. The current budgeted salary of about $60,000 for the safety coordinator. We think for somebody that's going to be able to have both capabilities, we would have to pay $68,000 for that position, and then we can bring in a treasurer for 12 hours per board meeting at $185 per hour. For that's basically a total of $26,640 plus the salary for the safety coordinator / secretary of $68,000. Whenever you look at it based upon the way the budget is set up, it's about $39,640 above the current budgeted amounts. If we look at it from another perspective, we can just provide some personnel to handle the secretary and treasurer position at basically the 32 hours per scheduled board meeting. Once again, 20 hours for the secretary and about 12 hours for the treasurer. Looking at it from that perspective, it's about $71,040 per year. And that is currently that entire amount is kind of it's not budgeted. And so we would have to figure out how to do a budget amendment to make that one work. If we look at option 3, we can modify the current HTG contract and bring a secretary in. Once again, we would combine the secretary safety coordinator position. That position is about, once again, budgeted at about $60,000. We expect it's going to cost about $68,000 per year plus the benefits. So looking at it from that perspective, there's some differential in benefit cost of about $5,000 per month. And that is just due to the differences in the benefits packages. So looking at it from that perspective, that option there, which is option 3, which is about $13,000 more than what is budgeted. And the treasurer position would be filled by DCTA's current CFO. So that person would then serve in the treasurer position. And so HTG would not be responsible for that. And then option 4, after looking at it, we could do it to where we just provide the secretary for the 20 hours per week at the current rate that we have listed, which is about $44,400 per year. Once again, that's on the 20-hour mark per board meeting. And then the treasurer position would be filled by the DCTA CFO. And so that would be estimated about $44,400 that is not currently budgeted in the current NTMC budget. After looking at everything's in discussion with staff, we think that the best option is option 1, just for continuity purposes and making sure that the reporting structure is true and correct, to make sure that we've got the eyes in the right places and supervision in the right places. And so after looking at it, that would be our recommendation. And I'll turn it over to the board and Chairman Newkirk for any questions y'all may have.
Only thing I had was, if you would again kind of go over, after, I appreciate you presenting all of those and going through that in depth. Could you kind of go over again why you feel the option 1 is the overall best decision for the NTMC Corporation?
Yes, sir. Well, from the perspective of continuity of the staff, RJ and Luis Francois would, this person would report directly to them, and then as the safety coordinator. And then whenever you're looking at it from the perspective of the board, RJ reports directly to the board, the safety coordinator, and in their position as secretary would also report directly to the board. And so for continuity purposes, we think that makes a lot of sense. Looking at it from the perspective of the way that we can try to save the most money, the safety coordinator position is already budgeted. It's currently unfilled. And so if we take and we combine that, now it takes a special person to do both safety and the secretary position, but we have somebody on staff that we believe can do that and fulfill those job duties in an effective manner. We pay them a little bit more than $60,000 a year. Currently, we pay them about $68,000. And so there's a differential there. And then we believe that there's about a $5,000 differential on the budgeted amounts. From the treasurer perspective, we think it's a good idea to have a second set of eyes that are independent, that report directly to the NTMC board. DCTA would prepare all of the financial records and things to that nature, and then, provide that information to the treasurer that would report directly to the board. And so we believe that by doing it this way, that gives that second set of eyes that would help see anything or any issues, or be able to ask questions maybe that some of us might not catch. No matter who the treasurer is, we want to make sure that they are a certified CPA and that they understand transit. What we would propose, the person would be a CPA and has about a little over 10 years in transit financial management. So looking at it from an overall game plan, we think that that one makes the most sense. It's budget wise, it's not the cheapest, but it's out of the four options, it's the next to the last that would be as far as budget impact. And so we thought that made the most sense. We think that in the future going forward, if at some point, NTMC decides to change their overall operation and mode based upon the way we set up the job descriptions and things like that, this could continue into the future and continue to serve the NTMC board, the DCTA board, and the overall community the best way.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Now I open up to the board. Does the board have questions or comments on these?
Chairman Euchert, this is Raymond Suarez. I do have a question for Mr. Hendrickson. John, so what you're proposing is that we amend the contract for the position at 68,000, and then we eliminate the position out of the NTMC budget because it's coming into the Hendrickson HTG contract. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm actually in favor of this option. I think it affords us a bit more separation and independence of the two organizations, which I prefer. So I appreciate you putting these proposals together. I think the amount of financial impact that it has is relatively small, but can make a major impact on how the two organizations operate. So I very much appreciate your presentation, and I support your option one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any comments or anything?
This is Richard. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This is for Raymond. Raymond, under the couple of these options, the treasurer position will be filled by the DCTA CFO. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, I prefer it to be separated. One of the issues that we've had, as John has shown independently, on the amount of additional resources and hours that it takes to support the two agencies. And our CFO had a full-time job before we created NTMC. And so this was additional effort that's required on behalf of that same individual. I think that the amount of financial impact is minor in comparison to the amount of impact it has on our CFO. I'm currently trying to work through retention of our existing CFO. If not, I have to go back out in the marketplace and try to hire one. So it's already having an impact today in our ability to continue to execute that effectively and efficiently. So I would prefer regardless of whether DCTA continues with our existing CFO or hires another one, that I agree with John, having that level of independence. They're two separate entities. I think for transparency and clarity, they should be operated more independently.
Okay, and then here's my next question. This would be to John. It says that currently the position of safety coordinator is unfilled. How long has that been open? And then if we add this additional responsibility to that position, what would be, you think, a realistic timeline that would be filled?
Well, this is John. If we put it under the HTG contract, we think that we're going to have it filled in the next week and a half or 2 weeks. We've got somebody that we've identified that's certified by the World Safety Organization. And then we're going to bring them in. They'll be the safety training coordinator, and then we will then include in their job duties the secretary position. So the challenge that we have is just moving on to Denton. Now, if we continue to search, it's going to be difficult in the local market to find somebody that is, a good safety coordinator. I think if we bring somebody in, it's going to be somebody we're going to have to work with really close to help grow into becoming a safety coordinator for transit. There's some coordinators out there, but transit is a different animal, and so it's a little bit different to train CDL drivers that are carrying passengers rather than just CDL drivers that are driving trucks. And so it's a little bit different animal. There's a little bit more interaction and things like that. So we could still be 30, 60, 90 days out of filling that position. The current position, RJ, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been unfilled for the last 60 days. And we've been recruiting and trying to find somebody that would fit the bill for Luis, Francois, you can correct me as well. But whoever that person is, it's got to be a special person. And so, we've got to find the right person for the right fit, and so that we can be successful.
That's correct. It's been about 60 days or so. It does take a special person. We haven't been able to find the right fit. We've had some interviews, but we haven't been successful yet.
I would just like to add that safety has to be the most critical position we fill in any organization. In transit, it's paramount. RJ's been working incredibly hard to backfill positions. I think vacancies is probably our biggest challenge right now to deliver service. So if he has to hire folks to fill positions in a challenging market to begin with, and then with the conversations about how long service will continue, it's a big challenge. I think that more stability, if HTG can fill that position and bring some stability and fill it quickly, I think that would be a great help.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments on this?
The only thing I would say is I agree with Raymond. Safety, first of all, I would say even from an organizational standpoint, like a city, is a #1 priority for internal, staff, but also externally and how we do our jobs. But I can only imagine how that even bumps up more from a safety perspective with when you're transporting people.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else?
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure I understand. So if HTG has a candidate that they feel can fill this position, do we see this as a long-term solution? Is this individual going to be with us long-term, or is this a short-term solution?
Mr. Henderson, can you address that, sir?
Well, from our perspective, it'll be during the term of the contract. Our goal is to continue to move transit forward with every community that we serve. So the employee would be a HTG employee, and so depending upon what happens with the contract, if the contract ended 10 years from now, that employee would hopefully consider, continue to be here for that 10 years. If the contract's over in 9 months from now, because of the changes that are going on at DCTA and things like that, that employee would then, when our contract ends, would leave with HTG. And that the benefit of having a company like us work with you is that we do have the people, on bench depth to do these type of jobs, because that's what we try to do. So it's hard to say that they're going to be there long-term, because it would depend on the contract, but we want them to be there long-term. We want to be a partner with you long-term, and we want to help, be part of the success of the community overall.
And I
Great.
just want to add also, currently Luis Francois has been having to train and do safety at the same time, and it's kind of taken away from her regular duties. And so it would be a great help for her, so she can concentrate in other areas. I mean, there's a lot of different departments that she needs to focus on, and this would be one that it would help her drastically.
So I'm very supportive of this option. I'm just curious, is this individual you've talked about, these two positions that it would take a special person to fill, is this person already aware that they're being considered for this, or is this something where they've been identified and we know they could do it, but we have not approached them?
Now, I've already had personal conversations with this individual. Their ultimate goal is to step up to be a GM one day. And so they're a very good safety training person. They have good writing skills and things of that nature. So the secretary position will be a little bit different for them, but I think they've got the capabilities to do that. And so I've already spoken to them about it. And then, of course, for continuity purposes of reporting, they'd report directly to, Luis Francois and RJ, and then, of course, myself ultimately. And so I think it would work out really well. But they are, certified by the World Safety Organization. They've been in transit for over 20 years. So, their next step is to take a step like this, then to an assistant GM, and then to a GM job.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. I think everyone's weighed in on this. Again, Mr. Henderson, I greatly appreciate it. I believe that to visit with you a few times, that you and your organization have had over 25 years of experience in public transportation. It's probably more than 25. I can't remember exactly, but I know you've had a lot of experience in that, and you've always been on board with us when we need to try to get something accomplished with the issues that we've had. And for the last year and a half that you, RJ, and your team has been on board with us, things seem to be smoothing out and running a little bit more on a regular basis. And I know we had things cropped up and here and there, but y'all seem to have handled them. And I think you'll hear later in RJ's report how things are going smoothly right now. We're having a few hiccups here and there, but they're getting handled. And I think if we continue to work with your organization like this, we'll be able to, as Raymond said, to maybe have a little bit of independence there, where we make sure that we're doing what we are charged to do, which is to make sure that the bus operation runs very efficiently and smoothly for the public, making sure we can do the best job we can at a fair price. And so we appreciate that, and I think it's helped us a lot. Anyone else have any recommendations or comments?
Chairman Euchre, before we move for a motion, I want to make sure that the board recognizes that there is a financial impact, although I believe that within the way the budget has trended over the last several years, we've consistently come in under budget. I believe the money is available within the existing budget. However, if it's not, we're in the budget process with the DCTA board. So we'll follow up, but I don't believe that the financial impact is significant enough to make a budget amendment. So I'm in favor of moving forward, and I'll make a motion that we approve option 1 as stated by John Hendrickson.
Second.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion to approve option 1 by member Suarez, and a second, I believe, by member Hensley.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, please say no. Great, motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone, for all your input. And it's good to know we're all on board on this and getting it done. And we, again, with Mr. Henderson, RJ, and Francois, we greatly appreciate all the efforts that you're making each day and making sure that we're running smoothly. So with that, we'll move on to the agenda. Item 3B, discuss and consider the revised North Texas Mobility Corporation Operator Handbook. And Mr. Garza, I'll turn that over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I know it's the operator handbook is quite lengthy to read, and I'm not sure if you've had enough time to go over that. I know everybody has a busy schedule. I just kind of want to highlight, I'd like to introduce our senior HR specialist, who's Cameron Springer, and she's on the line. And I'd like for her to go ahead and just kind of go over some brief highlights. But if you need more time to review it and don't want to, we don't want to rush anybody into approving at this time. It's already been through legal. And now it's time to run it by the board. But if we need to move this item to next month, that'll be fine as well. But I just want to have Cameron go ahead and go over some highlight things that needed to be changed.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, how are y'all?
Good morning, ma'am.
So when we were talking about the operator handbook, we just made some minor revisions based on the CBA. We have added the 401k, and we've also added some federal regulations under FMLA and religious accommodations. We've made some minor adjustments to replace the NTMC officers with the board of directors and the president with the recent changes that have come about with John becoming the NTMC interim president. And then we have just added small revisions to the handbook. Anybody have any questions?
Is the only thing I'd say, is there anything in there in the revisions that you think stands out?
The 401k that we did add based on the CBA negotiations, we did add a floating holiday for our operators. And then we added the nursing mothers under the FMLA. That's pretty much the major changes that we have made. And the religious holiday.
Why don't you go ahead for the board? This is Joe Gorfito. Why don't you go ahead for the board and just kind of go over real quickly the changes in section 4. It's page 47 of the packet that just deals with the statement of wages.
I
Okay.
do have a question about the 401k before we move off of that, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So there's 2 401k plans that are available to the operators, the ATU 401k and this new 401k. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you in a very short period of time explain the differences, how the operator, what the benefit of one over the other is?
With the ATU 401k, it doesn't have a vesting schedule. So after 30 days, it's 100% invested. We did with the NTMC operator 401k plan, we did a vesting schedule of 5 years. And it's a discretionary plan. We designed it to be a discretionary plan to make sure that we are able to adjust the contributions from the employer based on future CBA negotiations. I would say that there is really, in my personal opinion, I don't see where there would be a one is better than the other. The ATU plan, from my understanding, is you have to be a part of the ATU to participate. And that's from my understanding from our union stewards and from the ATU itself when I was talking to Quorum. And then the NTMC operator plan itself, anybody who is a driver can participate in this plan. So when we're looking at which one's better than the other, some kids say our plan is actually better than the other because everybody is able to participate who is under the union umbrella, as far as the ATU plan only being restricted to those who are in the union.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Graffiti, you wanted to go over what item again, sir?
You're on mute.
Mr. Graffiti, you're on mute.
Figure I'd have this figured out by now. On page, I just wanted her to explain on page 48 the changes to the statement of wages, just so the board is aware of those.
Okay, so with the statement of wages, the first year of this negotiation, it was a 4% increase from the previous CBA to this new CBA. And then in 2022, going forward, it's a 3% increase. So we have updated those wages to reflect those changes.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comments on this item? Do we need to go ahead and approve these amendments to the handbook, Joe?
Yes, that would be the goal.
Now, if someone feels like they haven't had enough time, as Mr. Garza said, he knows it's a very lengthy deal. If you feel like you need more time, please say so. Otherwise, if you want, we can go ahead and accept a motion to approve.
Richard, I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve as presented by Member Hayes and a second by Member Hensley. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Cameron, for your help, ma'am, and explanations. Next item is item 3C, presentation of General Manager's monthly report. Mr. Garza, I'll turn it over to you once again, sir.
Thank you. Good morning again. Before we get to the monthly August, I just wanted to point out, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this when we were talking about the financials or in that section on the ridership, but as Mr. Suarez mentioned, there was substantial. We have a substantial amount of savings or favorable variance in as of the end of July. It's like a 1.3 million. So that is very favorable. Just want to point that out. I'm sure you all caught that. Also on the ridership, if you notice since April, if you take a look at that particular graph or I think it's report 2B, and the gray bar areas, you can see as far as the bus ridership, as it's been spiking up. It's not where it was back in 2019. We understand that. We believe by August, as UNT ridership, and I was out there when we started in August, this past Monday, there's considerable amount of more students out there than in the past as far as last year. So we're going to see a dramatic increase in ridership, but that's primarily because of the UNT students. But nevertheless, we're going to keep a close eye on Denton Connect as well. But I just wanted to point that out. We're going to start gradually seeing an increase going forward in ridership. As far as everything went pretty smooth, as it was mentioned earlier. We started the new fall semester, and we had a couple of hiccups, and I just mean like we had a couple of drivers that called out, so we had those positions filled, and we didn't miss any assignments. So my hats off to the staff, Louise. I know she's been very was very pleased with the outcome and everything the staff has been working on. And I'm talking about all the staff, everybody from servicing to maintenance to getting the buses ready. We've had to renovate some of the old units that were kind of sitting in the parking lot for about 3 years. So to bring those back to life is an incredible mission. So I just want to thank the maintenance team for that. They do an incredible job. I mean, obviously there was a lot of parts and things that needed to be ordered and replaced to get those units back to speed. But if you see them, they look very nice. And I wish we could repaint them, but that wouldn't be something that we would want to do right now. But anyway, you'll see those, and they're marked 600s, and the 6 means that they're 2006 units, so they're pretty old. There is a special movement that was requested, and we will be accommodating that shuttle service. It's for the Western Days event. I understand that it is. They do rely on the buses. They get packed with people, and we are looking forward to that event and trying to make it a success for them as well. So we will be accommodating that request. And we've had our challenges with hiring. I want to thank Cameron and Louise for following through with interviews, and we have quite a few in training. We have a couple that came back that were used to work here. So we put them on a fast track. And so they're already out on revenue service. And that's all I have on the monthly report. I do want Cameron to speak about the staffing roster report. And then if we can move to that item, and then Louise and I will go over the ticket sales and deposit report. Cameron, does anybody have any questions on the monthly report? Okay. So Cameron, can you go ahead and let's go ahead and go over some of the staffing challenges that we've had and where we currently stand with operators.
So we currently have 68 operators. We have hired 4 within the last 2 weeks. As RJ said, that they were in training, but they were released on Monday, so they are in full service. So that makes us sit at 68. We have hired 2 more as of yesterday. We are looking at hiring at least 15 more. We currently have 1 open run that is available for choosing. And then after that, we will be full on our runs. And then we are looking at, again, 15 additional operator hires to ensure that we have a full extra board to add to our extra board. RJ, do you want me to go over the vacancies?
Yes, please.
Okay, so currently we're looking at 1 dispatcher. We have a couple interviews this week for a dispatcher. And then we are looking also for a facilities manager, and then a parts coordinator and a lead road supervisor. We have had multiple interviews for quite a few. We're just looking for the right person. And we are very confident that those will be filled by the end of next week. We have hired a lead dispatcher, and we have hired another dispatcher, which came open last month as well. So we had 2 dispatchers, and now we're only looking for 1.
Thank you, Cameron. Anybody have any questions? Obviously, we're a little short on drivers, but we are being very aggressive in following through with anybody that we're looking, reviewing, or Cameron reviews all the applicants, and we primarily want CDL candidates. We currently don't have any need right now for non-CDL, but so previously we did, but now we're okay. So we're looking for candidates that already have CDL. That's what makes it a little more challenging. So thank you, Cameron.
Hey, Cameron, this is Raymond. Let
Yes,
me ask
sir.
you a question about, you mentioned parts coordinator because that's not on the list unless I'm missing it. Did you say that you're having interviews and you hope to have that closed soon? Because I know that's a critical position.
Yes, we hope to have it filled at least by the end of next week.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, the deposit report.
As far as the ticket sales, if nobody else has that question, and I have Louise on the call as well. If the deposit matches the ticket sales, if you take a look at that, the ticket sales is a little over $10,000, and also fare collection was a little over or slightly under 3,000. So overall, it was about $13,000. And it's reflected there in the report. If anybody has any questions, Louise is on the call, and myself.
Richard, I have a question. When I look at that Exhibit 2B, which is the unlinked passenger trips bus, I see there for the month ending July, we had 28,304 passenger trips. And then when I look at this sheet, and look at the revenue that was generated, I know there's additional revenue because, as I understand it, DCTA does a sale of certain of our fares where they get the train and the bus. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And those numbers are not reflected in your report that you just went over, the 10,008 number of ticket sales.
I would have to review that. I thought it was in that report, but
So you're thinking that maybe the DCTA numbers are also on this report?
let's keep in mind now the UNT students don't. I mean, we have a contract, so they don't charge the students fares. So, but
UNT just pays us like a lump sum, and then their students use it.
It's a separate
as needed. Okay. When I look at the 10,046 number and I divide it by the number of, I guess, cards sold, that's like $1.87 per card, just, average across. And have we ever tried to determine what is the cost per ride versus our revenue per ride?
Yes, that information is available. We have a cost allocation model that breaks out what our fare box recovery is, our cost per passenger, cost per hour, cost per mile. There's a lot of statistics that go into it. Fare box recovery across the US typically is a fraction of your actual cost of delivering service. But we can make that available. And the 187 is consistent with what's projected typically is and presented to both. Well, it's presented at the DCTA board as the average fare per passenger. And that's been fairly consistent for the last couple of years.
All right, that might be very informative. Maybe at our next meeting, if you could share that what the cost per average cost per rider, I guess. Thank you.
Now that you mentioned that, I also wanted just to add on the access ridership if you take a look at that slide, it has, I mean, we have seen an increase in access ridership clients, and so that's real good. As far as the on-demand has pretty much stayed stagnant, hasn't increased or anything, but on the buses, ridership has increased and access ridership has increased.
Chair, you're on mute. Are you ready to move to the next item?
I'm sorry, I was just running on. I didn't know I was on mute. I
I
apologize.
thought that might have been the case. That's why.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Yes, I was asking, does anyone else have any comments or any questions on the deposit report? You know, don't hear any, so thank you, Member Suarez, for reminding me of that. So we'll move on now to item 3D, because I don't believe there's any action needed to be taken on those reports. Just these are informational reports. Action 3D is discuss North Texas Mobility Corporation proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. Once again, Mr. Garzo, if you would go over that with us, please, sir.
Real quick, Chair, this is Sarah. I do have to jump off at 9. I just wanted to make sure you knew that, because in case there was anything that needed action or anything else, just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, there actually is. Then in that case, let's go ahead and move down to item 3E. If you go ahead and discuss and consider North Texas. I wanted to do the budget before, but y'all seen the budget now, so I think you can get that information you need. Of course, you can answer any questions, ask any questions on this, but we'll do item 3E, discuss and consider North Texas Mobility Corporation operator retention and recruitment incentive pay. I think this is a program that Mr. Garza may have come up with and his staff may have come up with that could help us in hiring new drivers and retention of drivers as our current drivers and drivers that we hire. So Mr. Garza, if you go over that with us, please, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you know, we have some drivers shortages. We've had our challenges with recruitment, but basically this is to help us retain the drivers that we currently have and encourage them to continue with us as we continue forward. I mean, DCTA has not made a decision either way, whether to discontinue the service or not. It's going to be evaluated and assessed. They're going to take a look at the data, and we just want to make sure that we do everything possible to encourage our drivers to continue with us. And I believe that, you know, that the city of Denton is I mean, a lot of people rely on the service. I mean, it's good to have different modes. I believe that it's good to have a choice, but I think you'll see that a lot of the people in Denton are used to the bus system, and they feel safe, and for the most part, they really like our drivers and they feel confident about it. So I believe that we'll see. I'll talk about that a little bit more as far as the budget. I have a different presentation about that, but in terms of retention, this is to encourage all active drivers to continue and at 100%. And I understand that I have a provision in here that it excludes, you can't have any PTO or use PTO. The whole point is we need you here. And this is just for the month of September. I've had a discussion with CEO, Mr. Raymond Suarez, about this, and he's also given me a lot of good input and how to continue this or how to provide this. And so I appreciate his help with this particular subject. And so yeah, the whole point is to help retain the current drivers, and we would appreciate your support. The budget impact would be, it's not to exceed 80,000. We don't have 80 drivers. We currently have 68, and not all of them are active. So we're not going to exceed that number for the month of September. So any questions?
Just Richard, I have one. This will be for the month of September. What is your thinking going forward for the latter months, October, November, December, and moving forward?
Yeah, discussions with Raymond. He will also be having these discussions with DCTA, whether we can continue this for the months of November and December, at least, and then go from there. But we have enough savings in the current budget. I pointed out we have a 1.3 million favorable variance that we can do this within our budget. I believe if we could move monies from this fiscal year to next fiscal year, so it starts in October, and I pointed out that to Mr. Suarez, so that's why I wanted to give him an opportunity to bring that up to the board in case there needs to be a budget amendment. Or
Yeah, there's typically currently there's plenty of budget in the salary and wages line item in the existing NTMC budget, so that's covered. There should be no reason for us to, as a board, to consider a budget amendment. We think, depending on how the board, depending on the data, and as the board looks at bus ridership, it's likely that we would want to continue this for at least a couple of months. The service is supposed to be running parallel for 90 days. So I think to do whatever we can to stabilize the workforce, RJ and Cameron are doing a really good job working hard to recruit. But we can't have folks leaving as fast as we hire them. And that's been a challenge in the past, where this market is very, very challenging, not just for DCTA, but across the nation. And then we have ladled on top of that the challenge of not really being certain how much longer some of these routes are going to be operated. So the budget is there. I believe that there's a budget existing within the proposed FY22 budget. I don't think it'll require a budget amendment, but this will be brought up during the board discussion as we look at the budget moving forward. And I've already, in my weekly reports to the DCTA board, I've been informing them of the challenges with the bus operators. And so I think everybody is aware of the situation.
So this
Great.
is Sarah.
Go ahead,
I just-
Sarah.
Just have a quick question. How many operators are actually leaving? Because if you look at, $1,000 per month bonus, depends on how many there are and
you're asking what?
how many drivers are
many?
leaving? How many?
Well, at one point we had 70, Cameron can correct me, but I believe we had about 74 up to 77 operators at one point. And in the discussions, unfortunately, as far as the service reduction and the unknown of what was going to be decided, some operators chose, most of them from the low seniority. That the high seniority would not be effective. So the major, the ones that would be affected would be of low seniority. So we've had, if that decision was to happen, so that's been why people have been.
But how many have left? How many have left, or who are leaving, and how many are you anticipating leaving?
I don't have an exact count, but Cameron's on the line. Maybe.
So just in the last 30 days, I'm going to say like in the last month, we have had 9 operators, out of which 7 of those resigned due to other employment, due to the situation with DCTA going into negotiations with VIA. It's the unknown. It's the stability that they're looking for. RJ was correct. We had, at one point, we had 74, 75 operators, and now we're down to 68. And what we're seeing is, and even with my recruitment, the nonstop that Luis and I have been doing with recruitment, it's, you know, a lot of it is, there are some that have said, you know, this isn't a good fit for me, or the pay isn't right. But when we're talking about operators leaving, it's a huge amount.
At one time, RJ, I think in the report, we were around 20 plus operators down. So you guys have been doing a good job trying to fill them, but it's a constant challenge. Incentive pay is something that is typically used to retain workforce. I think this is something we need to continue to look at. It's offset by the fact that you have open positions, so you're not consuming your budget on salary and wages. So there's money that's available to pay for it. We just need to get to stabilize the organization as best we can. And I think this is a good program. We need to look at it in September and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. But the DCTA board has requested of this NTMC organization to sustain services for 90 days so that we can evaluate and look at the analytics. But in fairness to the NTMC workforce, we have to be able to put service out on the street. So I think this is very critical, and we need to support RJ.
I don't disagree with you, Raymond. I guess my question is, and I get it, but that $1,000 a month, let's say for 4 months, that's $4,000. I mean, it's going to chip away, you know, after a period of time. And how long are you anticipating doing this? I mean, and I guess I would ask them, and I'm just looking at if it was coming from here, we don't get a chance to offer those kinds of things. But you know, have we done some statistics analysis, some type of analysis with other entities as to what they do, how they do it? I mean, $1,000 per operator, even if it was, you know, that's a lot of money. And I wonder,
it's for 90 days.
For 90 days. Okay. So if you did it for 3 months, $3,000, but then.
And I think that's to give NTMC the ability to hire Cameron and RJ enough time to hire the workforce to fill those open positions. That's the real concern. If we don't have operators in seats, then we're missing runs, and if we're missing runs, we're letting our customers down. So that's the biggest challenge I think that we have. I'm trying to support from DCTA's perspective. How do we support NTMC in stabilizing and a workforce and making sure that their efforts aren't futile as far as retention? This is something that I know, I'm in conversations with other transit authorities in the region. We've had this conversation. They've recommended the same thing, that it's a logical thing to consider given our.
No, I understand. I guess it says in the packet, it says 1 month. You're saying 3 months.
This is the first month is for September because it's in FY.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then the FY22 budget would cover the other 2 months if it's.
And I'm sorry, I have to jump off, but I could support, you know, $500. I mean, I just don't have enough. This is kind of one of those things where I think $1,000 for 3 months even is a lot of money. But if the group decides that that's what they want to do, I'm fine. I'm assuming this has to go to the DCTA board as well.
I will inform the board, but it's not going to impact the budget. So that's within the NTMC's spending authority. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I don't think that it requires a board action because of the dollar amount.
As long as it's in the NTMC budget, you don't need to do a budget amendment and get additional funding from the board.
And I apologize, I have to get off. I'm late for a meeting now, so. But I just had those questions, and I'm uncomfortable with $1,000 per month. But if the group decides that's the way to go, I'm certainly in support.
Thank you, Member Hensley. What if we would you be comfortable if we look at the $1,000 for the 1 month and then we come back with some additional information for the following 2 months? Would you be comfortable with that?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hey, this is
So,
Richard. I have
go ahead, Rick.
another question. If I'm doing the math correctly, $1,000 a month on average for our, it looks to me that's about $5.76 an hour. That is if a person worked all their hours that for that time period. So what that led me to think then is, how is the $1,000 determined? And if we added $5 to the hourly rate that we just approved, or we approved earlier, but is now stated in our employee handbook, we said on our 0 to 12-month person, we're paying them $1,560. So we add that to the $576. How would that compare with other transit authorities?
Well, I'm not sure about other transit authorities. I think that the school districts are a little higher pay. They've been paying about $20 an hour, but it's a different type of system of service because it's some drivers may not want to have like a split shift like that. That's why they tend to try to move with us, but our hourly rate is a little lower. And that was approved by it's under a CBA contract, so we're just abiding by that. I do think that we do need to revisit that. This would help us in the meantime. I know $1,000 sounds like a lot, but it's an incentive. Not everybody's going to get it. There's going to be people that are going to be out for whatever reason, and they have to work 100% of their time or the regular schedule for the whole month in order to receive it. But
what if somebody has a vacation schedule? Does that make them ineligible to receive it?
that would make them ineligible. They would have the option whether they want to use that, or they can postpone that for maybe December when we're have a slower months.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So hearing the questions and comments, would it be possible for us to look at approving this for the 1 month? And then you bring back, Mr. Garza, if you could possibly bring back some information to get those questions answered. One I'm hearing that might be good is what are other, not just transit authorities, but the other people that we're having to compete against. You brought up the school district, for example, what their salaries are and if they're offering any incentives or anything like that for retention. And then in other transit authorities, of course, you have to look at geographically, because I'm sure up in New York, it's a lot different than what it is down here. But look at those. And then also, if you could maybe look, and I know it won't be exactly this, but if you could kind of give us an idea of how many drivers you think will actually qualify for this on a monthly basis. That way it would give us more of a kind of a general idea of what this, how much this would go into the budget. I mean, 68 drivers, if they all did, which like I say, they're probably not, that'd be 68,000 every month. However, if you could maybe get us some rough estimation of what you think, how it will come into play, fine. And then we could look at moving forward on that for the following months. Would that work?
Yes, we can do that. We can provide that.
And then also, I know Member Kingsley was wanting to know if you could get us the deal of course, I know we've had extenuating circumstances with the pandemic and everything, but also the number of drivers that we had prior to that and prior to the changes that DCTA is looking at making, the number of drivers that we had peak, I will say, and then what was our lowest time and when we've had the fewest driver because the drivers leaving. And that would kind of give us an idea of how many we had the most and how many the fewest we had, and then kind of where we are now. And that'll kind of give us some evidence, I think, also to answer Member Hensley's questions. And then we could look at that again next month if we could. Would that work, Mr. Garza?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hayes, is that all right with you, sir?
Yes, sir.
So Councilman Graffiti, ask on that, is it all right for us to go ahead and make a motion to approve this for the 1 month and bring it back next month for possible ongoing future months?
Yes.
Okay, with that, does anybody else have any questions or anything on this? Okay, would entertain a motion if someone has one.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve for the 1 month.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion by Member
I'll second.
Suarez to approve for 1 month, and a second by Member Combs. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Okay, now we'll back up to the, thank everyone for that, and we'll back up to item 3D, discussion of the North Texas Mobility Corporation proposed fiscal 2022 budget. Mr. Garza, please.
Thank you. Well, currently we're on the in August 2021, we're just presenting the budget as it with the assumptions that we currently have from DCTA, and next month it will have the final approval of the budget. So the formal budget adoption will take place next month in September. If we could move to slides 109 to 112, I'm not going to go through each individual slides. I do want to just speak about the overall where we're currently at, and as we move into the future budget. As you're aware, DCTA has approved to continue the fixed route services for the next 90 days, commencing on September 7th. During that time, they will evaluate and assess the data to analyze the ridership preferences in parallel with the Go Zone service. One of the DCTA's primary stakeholders is the city of Denton, and they have expressed their concerns regarding the proposed elimination of fixed route service in Denton, and they recommended at that time a 6-month extension period to evaluate the data. Typically in the industry, I just want to share with you that, transit planning evaluation usually requires a minimum of 1 year, which is a desirable to evaluate and assess the ridership data thoroughly throughout the whole year, because you have different seasons. Right now, we're in the fall season. They're going to be evaluating. It's in our favor because that's when we have our highest ridership. But to take a full assessment of what's going on, you really want to, most desirable, at least 12 months. But 3 months, in my opinion, is not sufficient to determine what customers would prefer. In my experience, in any changes that are made, whether you add or decrease service, you can expect a minimum of 20% reduction in ridership. That's just a given in the industry. So if you see, you're going to see a change when you make a reduction, you're going to make it at least 20-25% change. That doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. It just means like you may need to fine tune what you've decided as far as your routes and things like that. It's also my opinion and experience that customers and the community would like to see a mix of option modes that they can choose, not just one or the other, And this corresponds with DCTA's mission statement. They're committed to offer more alternative and innovative mobility options to improve the quality of life. So that that falls in their same mission to have options for the public. And I believe that's the right way to go. The DCTA board has also approved ambassador program to help educate the passengers about GO Zone service while riding fixed route, which is good. I think they do need to be educated. They do need to be able to know what options that they have. But we also would like to recommend that you include onboarding and deboarding counts by stop for the ambassador program. If you're going to hire them to do that particular duty, why not go ahead and have them count how many people are currently on that bus? And so if they're going to be working throughout the next 3 months, that would be something ideal that we could use as far as data. What are the hotspots that we have? And where are the low points that maybe need to be revisited as far as the routes? The establishment of cost-efficient and effective bus transit service is the basic premise upon which transit service is developed and the goal that all public transportation agencies strives to achieve. To attain this goal, public transit agencies must design their services around clear and defined principles, as well as a process to monitor the results achieved and to respond accordingly. This requires service design standards. You need to establish 3 things: design standards, an effective performance measurement system, and a systematic and continuous service evaluation methodology. The route layout and design of the system can also impact service accessibility. So aside from placing services where they will have the most transit market potential. So it's important that moving forward, I mean, right now, the next 3 months, we're going to be operating the services that we've always been operating. That it's in my opinion and my experience that it requires those 3 basic things: service design standards and to have an effective performance measurement. You can't just judge the ridership on just the overall ridership for a route. You know, that doesn't work. You have to have a standard. It's my suggestion that the NTMC Board of Directors recommends to the DCTA board to establish and develop a route performance measurement program. One that not only measures whether clients prefer one mode versus a different mode of service, but would consider the effectiveness of each, set a productivity guideline for standards for fixed route service, such as in some agencies, they have 15 to 20 passengers per revenue hour as a measurement. And if a route is deviated due to road construction, that average, an acceptable average may be from 5 passengers per hour. We have a lot of construction roads that are going on right now, but you don't take into account the effects that has with the ridership. So I'm saying that to have a good program, and so you could have the board members where they can see a standard and they can say, okay, we've adopted this standard. This is what, and this route is falling below that, then it's understandable that a change needs to be made or a tweak needs to be made or consideration to eliminate the service. That's what I'm talking about. Create a system to where it's not just a guessing game. It's you have a standard developed and adopted by the board is what and you have the same type of standards for the GO Zone. Establish that. This will assist them in determining route performance from an analysis-based performance. Weekday standards should be set higher than Saturday standards. So that's also those are patterns that need to be in planning transit. Those are typical things that we look at. The weekday has always been higher than Saturdays, but what's acceptable and what's not acceptable is need to be determined. So, DCTA is a regional transportation authority. It its goal is to connect one urban area with another urban area. And we recommend that DCTA consider developing either a master transit plan or a comprehensive transportation analysis plan, as they've done in the past. I think it's been 5 years since they've had the last one. So it's recommended every 5 years to do that. And, you know, I call it to create a smart regional county program that focuses on connecting regional transit throughout for community to community, as we do now, but to concentrate on where people really want to get to. Sometimes you'll see bikes on buses. Why? Because they want to go to the hike and bike trails, or they want to go to a recreational park, or they want to go to enjoy something else, and they have their bike on board. They're not going to be able to have bikes on the GO zone. I don't know how they're going to do that. But they have that option with us, and they'd use it. And a lot of people depend on us. So I recommend that we as NTMC would help to have the DCTA board consider to go ahead and if they have the monies available or a grant available to do the comprehensive transportation plan analysis. You know, there's the fleet that we're using is great, but you're going to need to have a plan of an action to replace those vehicles. And the market and the whole industry, or a lot of the industry, is moving to either fully electric buses or hybrid electric diesel buses. My experience in preference would be a hybrid diesel electric. And I can share with you why, you know, and I have been in experience with using vehicles that are CNG vehicles.
Our judges, this is Joe Graffita, General Counsel. I just wanted to jump in real quick and kind of remind us of the topic that we're on. I think we're
Yes, I'm sorry. But so just, you know, those basically my recommendations. As far as the budget, the preparation, as you see, if you have any questions about it, we can answer those, but it's reflective basically on the assumptions of reduction of service moving forward. And that's all we have to go by right now. But my hope is that we continue service and we can help make recommendations to the DCTA board. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. And Counselor, to that, I would kind of wonder if we could adopt a resolution or something which would benefit, which would benefit the NTMC board in as we move forward for future budget years, for knowing the cost of actual operators, the cost of the maintenance, the cost of the actual buses themselves, all of that. If we could make a resolution that RJ make that a similar presentation what he just did with us, as far as a 5-year plan or some type of a plan of transportation mobility overall to the to the DCTA board, work with Mr. Suarez on getting that on their agenda so that they could kind of give us some forward looking ideas as to how we're going to need to address staffing and maintenance and buses and those type of things. So if maybe we could get that put on their agenda future, then that might encourage them to give us some foresight going on. Would that be possible, Mr. Graffita, to do a resolution under this?
No, we don't have a resolution listed under this to act.
Okay.
But let me add that we recognize that an update, and Mr. Garza's correct, we do have planned an update to our long-range master plan.
Okay, we better stay back on deal like Councilor Graffiti. And I apologize. Ms. Schwartz, I shouldn't have brought that up, I guess. I was just trying to get it
No,
put in there.
that's fine. I think transparency and clarity and discussion is important. We also have a cost model that we can share that clearly breaks out operator cost, fleet. We have a fleet maintenance or fleet replacement plan. All those things that Mr. Garza suggested do exist. So they're available already.
Okay.
The
Does anybody
challenge-
have any questions? Anybody have any questions on the budget that was presented to get us back on the actual item, which I understand Councilor Graffito wants to stay on, which I certainly understand we should.
Yes, Richard. With some of the other data we presented in other meetings, you know what made us start looking at, I guess, different delivery systems on our transit was the fact that we had a 5-year trend in downward ridership. So I think that putting money into the budget to look at this 5-year plan is an excellent idea, and as we continue to refine it, it's a noble undertaking to provide mass transit, but we're doing either the population desires and needs and wants is changing, or we're doing something here that's causing the ridership decline. And I think it's not so much operations. From everything I can see, it's for whatever reason in our part of the world, the customer has chosen other ways to get themselves around. So I think that's just an economic reality that we have to face, and we've got to build that into the budget. And to help us look forward, I think the study that RJ was recommending would be extremely helpful. Thank you. My calculation, we were down to more than 20% in ridership over the last 5 years. That's not even including COVID year. That is, if we went back and look at 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, fiscal year 20 really has started in September of 19. Before COVID ever came, we had more than a 20% reduction in ridership, and that's what started all the looking at the routes and eliminating some of those and providing different ways to get people around, like the demand access. So I think it's our duty as a board to respect the numbers and then try to find a way to either boost that ridership or to adjust it to where people want to, how they want to use it.
Well, certainly, I think that's DCTA's board's responsibility and mission. And I think that's why we're looking, to your point, Mr. Hayes, or board member, is why on demand is being supported so strongly by the board to provide additional mobility options, because you're absolutely correct. It's a nationwide downturn. It needs to be addressed. I think health systems that are thriving and healthy have multimodal transportation systems. I think there's a lot of really good things that have been said by everybody here. And I think that's in what's just been discussed is certainly congruent with the board's feeling, with the DCTA's board's feeling, why we're looking at alternative modalities to improve mobility. Because at the end of the day, as our board chair at DCTA has said, we're here to provide increased ridership. That's what we're all here to do, and support each other in doing so. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you, sir. And so as Councilman Graffiti says, let's get back to the item D, actually the discussion of the actual budget that was presented. Is there any other questions or comments on the actual budget that we've actually been presented for 2022? If not, this is not, did I understand you right? This does not need to be approved this month, but actually next month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so we'll look forward to seeing this on next month's agenda for an approval. Okay, and if anybody has any comments or concerns in the meantime between them, please reach out to Mr. Garza and let him know so he can gather information for you for the next meeting. Okay, that brings us down to item 3F, the NTMC staff spotlight. Mr. Garza.
Thank you. Well, now for the highlight of the meeting. Just want to recognize one of our operators who's been with us since 2007, and her name is Talitha Goff. They call her Ty. So just wanted to recognize her for her outstanding achievement, her customer service skills, keeping her routes on time, and her dedication to her job. So I just want to thank you. I'm sure she's on a route right now. She's not listening in, but hopefully she will tune into this in the next couple of days and see how proud we are. We will post this throughout the facilities and to recognize her appropriately. But I just wanted to thank her, and I know Louise is on the line as well if she wants to say anything, but I know she's very proud of her as well. So thank you.
Louise, did you want to comment on anything, ma'am? Maybe Louise is not on the line. I thought she was. Well, Ty, certainly, this is Dean Euchre, our chairman. I certainly want to thank you, Ms. Goff, on the wonderful job that you're doing. And it just goes to show your devotion is to your job and to North Texas Corporation Mobility, NTMC, I'm sorry, to making sure that the customers are taken care of, is that you didn't take time off of your route and your job today to attend this. But I know Mr. Garza and Luis will make sure that you know how much we greatly appreciate your efforts. And those type of efforts are what keep us going and keep our customers satisfied and happy. As was pointed out earlier in the meeting today, our customers seem to enjoy our drivers and they like them. So that's the reason we do have the uptick in ridership that we're showing here lately. And we greatly appreciate your efforts and look forward to many years of you serving with us. Thank you very much, ma'am.
And I apologize, I couldn't get my mic unmute.
I understand.
So, I mean, you said exactly what I would have said, so I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Like Audrey said, we do have some awesome people down there working. I just appreciate everything they do, from the one that just walking in the door to the one that been there the longest. So I apologize again for my mic not being able to unmute it.
Not a problem. I did the same thing earlier, so not a problem at all. And I knew you were there. I figured it was something like that.
I wasn't talking though. I apologize. I wasn't talking though, but I was sharing 3 monitors and I couldn't get my mouse to the right spot to unmute it.
Well,
Yes, we all need to wear.
do.
We all need to wear T-shirts that say "You're on mute." I think that's a new. I would like to echo the chairman's sentiments. She's doing a great job, apparently, and I think it's fantastic that you're recognizing your operators. They have a tough job. I know it's fulfilling because it's moving people to be able to live their lives freely, independently, by providing that mobility, and to see people that do it with grace, that do it consistently and with kindness, is the utmost level of professionalism, and reflects greatly on our brand, which is incredibly important. So, Ms. Goff, we thank you. I thank you as a board member on behalf of NTMC as well.
Okay. Anything else? I believe that takes us now down to item 4, which is the convene into executive session. Counselor, I don't believe we had anything to convene into executive session on.
There is no executive session scheduled.
Okay, then look at future board meetings and item agendas. The one thing I'll mention is we did the next month's item agenda, we will have the official adoption of the 2022 budget, and Also, we'll have the item on there about the retention, possibility of a retention bonus with the information that we had discussed earlier, Mr. Garza. So is there anything anyone else would like to make sure that we have on the agenda or add to the agenda for next month? Hearing nothing, I guess we will move on. Before we adjourn, I want to thank everyone for signing on today and taking the time out. Appreciate all your comments and efforts. Takes a group here to do this, and the group represents our village, so we do appreciate this. And also want to thank Keisha very much for all that you're doing. Keisha, you're doing a wonderful job. I appreciate you staying in touch with me and keeping me up on everything. And I'm not sure I'll be able to get by today to sign the documents. If not today, I will be tomorrow, but I will get with you first. And I will also have a document that Mr. Gorfita needs me to sign and bring it by. So with that, I want to thank that. And Louise, I want to thank you again for all that you do, ma'am. I know you stay busy. Like I said, you're working 3 monitors at once. So we greatly appreciate your efforts. And Cameron, thank you again for joining us today and the inputs that you did for us. And Mr. Garza, once again, great job. We thank you, sir. We appreciate your updates, and tell Mr. Hendrickson that we also appreciate what he's doing for us going forward. Anybody else have any comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Thank everyone. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The time is 9:34 a.m. Thank you.